Hello. It's two people here already. Thank you. Plus me, that's three. It's nice to see you guys. Thank you for being here. If you would, say hello in the chat so I actually know who it is that's here. If you would, that would be great. So thanks for being flexible and being able to move to 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. That's really great for me. We've had some questions on what was a good time, and this was a better time for me. So hopefully it's a better time for you too. So welcome. And if this is your first time here, welcome to you too. And I look forward to connecting and talking with you in chat. And if you find value in here, I'll ask already to like this if you like it, and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. But check it out and see if this is something of value. And if it is, then take a second and just like this video. I mean, it just takes so little, and it gives so much to the person. I watch a lot of YouTube videos, especially around fish, and I'm a fish keeper, as you can see back there, and so it's so many videos, so much of YouTube is free. And so for someone like you to just, if you like any part of this, to just take one extra half a second and click that like button, it's so valuable, not only just for me, but for anybody that you're watching on YouTube. It's just a little gift. And it says, hey, what you're doing is a good thing. Thank you very much. So if you do that for me, I would really appreciate it. So Marge is here and Fred's here, and it's nice to see you guys. And thanks for the like. I appreciate that. So today, the question of the day, and what we'll be talking about today is, okay, so when I turn this way, I just want to let you know I have some notes over here on my iPad. So that's what I'm looking at over here. And that's what we're doing. So today we're talking about what to do with all of the dilemmas that arise while questioning reality. Now, the interesting thing is that we're actually questioning reality all the time. I think we're questioning reality all the time, but there's a part of us that's questioning, and then there's a part of us that just kind of shuts down that questioning process because it's too scary. And for me, my understanding, my experience, and my sense of what is true is that this questioning process takes place even probably when we're in the birth canal coming through, because what's happening as we're going from when we're in the birth canal as little tiny fetuses and we're beginning to get birthed, we're in a state of trauma. Like we were in bliss in this womb, and then all of a sudden contractions happen, and all of a sudden blood supply decreases. We start to suffocate within this, and we start to question in our whole being, like, what is happening here? I am now not in a state of peace, but in a state of anxiety and fear and trauma because I'm about to die. So this whole birth process is very much that way. And when we come into the world, we're now separated from this warmth and this thing that we were attached to. And we go, what is this? What am I? Where am I? What's going on? And that's the beginning of our questioning. And we're soothed, and we're given food, and we're given nourishment, and we're taken care of as best as we are. But inside our little being, we have this little computer that's always wanting more information. What's happening? Why is it this way? And we continue this process, I think, throughout our whole life. We're these little innocent computers, and we begin to take in information. We're imprinted with information from way even before we're out of the mother's womb. And this imprinting is in us. And quite often that imprinting is fear-based. We're domesticated. The person, Alicia, hi, the person who wrote, and I always forget his name, but the guy who wrote the Four Agreements uses the word domesticated. We're domesticated, and we're, in a sense, taught and trained to be afraid. So even questioning reality is something to be feared. We know a lot of different countries and different organizations and different places where if you question reality, you could get killed for that, or you could definitely go to hell. Growing up in a Catholic community, you are not allowed to question the faith. You are not allowed to question the dogma. You weren't allowed to question. You took it, and if you didn't take it, you basically were going to go to hell. So much of that is in our system. We're supposed to be a certain way, and if we're not, then there's we're trained to fear the consequences. So that's kind of what we're dealing about when we question reality. We're questioning the interpretations of all that we've been trained to take in, all the ways that we've been trained to see the world and how to experience it. So, for instance, a really easy one is that sense of, you're supposed to watch the news every night. You're supposed to read newspapers. You're supposed to care about the thing in the other side of the world. Those little three things are very challenging to how we be in the world. A lot of news is very negative, and for me particularly, watching the news was hard on my system, and I had to question, is this good for me, and does this merely make a difference in the world? And I felt guilty because I wasn't going to watch it, or I wasn't going to read the newspapers. But that questioning reality begins to look at the interpretations that are inside me and inside many people of what's really true and what really makes a difference. And the same with watching movies. It's like, here's the best movies of the year. Here's the Golden Globe movies or the Academy Award winning movies. And even though someone else says these are good, for me, it doesn't work. And so part of me questions the reality. Shouldn't I want to watch what everybody else is watching, what they say is the best movies? And at some point, I have to start listening to myself and stop listening to what other people are thinking, what other people are saying, what other people are doing. And that's that place of the dilemma of, shouldn't I be doing that? And that happens when we begin to develop a sense of spirituality, when we start to look at who we are and what we're experiencing as a being in relation to our self, in relation to our higher self, and begin to say, well, this is how it feels to be me. And somebody else might say, well, this is how it feels to be me. And before, when I was a little kid and I had 8 brothers and sisters, like, well, I guess I should feel like that. And I don't. And so there must be something wrong with me. So that was the main interpretation I made about myself. There must be something wrong with me. Now, as I begin to cultivate a relationship with my spirit self or with spiritual principles in the world that says, you're perfect, you're perfect, you're created by God, you're created by divinity, and you're created as a perfect being. And my orientation is not that I'm perfect. My orientation is that I am wrong and not enough, and I lack everything. And so this moment of, wait a second, this says I'm perfect. This says I'm imperfect and I should be afraid. That's a huge dilemma, and one that faces every single one of us on all different levels, and all different, whether it's, I want to be wealthy, but I'm not because I'm not worth it, or whatever those questions are, or my health and well-being, my relationships with my children or my partners. All of those things are in balance and in interpretation based on what other people think and what reality is out there and what reality is in me. And so this process that we're talking about of cultivating relationship with ourselves is about the willingness to begin to question reality, whatever that is, in whatever context we're talking about, to question what's really true. And what's true for me, what's my experience versus what other people's have their experience. And the more that I think this is about our 8th live video, I think, that we're doing. And the more that I do these videos, this plus the ones on Tuesdays, which is a pre-recorded video, Spiritual Dilemmas. What was I going to say? Oh, so what's important is that I am having a direct experience of my life, of my being in this moment. And there's so much of me that doesn't allow me to know that direct experience. And that it's like it doesn't allow me to know that because I've been so programmed by the reality that I've been immersed in, that I don't even know that I'm having a unique experience that's mine and that is precious in the world, in the whole divinity of it. This is a precious moment. And so that owning my experience and my being, the quality of my being in this moment, is what we're cultivating through this practice, I believe, of cultivating spirituality, is we're beginning to own the preciousness of this experience, of this being, of this. And when we do that, we're more honoring and respecting and trusting that this is divine. This is what I'm supposed to be. This is the fulfillment. My intention is the fulfillment of this. So if you have any thoughts or questions about this, I would love to hear what you have to say. I see some more people have joined us. Thank you to those who have liked so far what I've said. That's awesome. And welcome to those of you who have joined me. And if you would, I'd love you to say hello through the chat so I know who's here. It's always fun to know who's here. One of the things that as I'm doing these lives and the pre-recorded, I'm realizing that in the whole conversation of spirituality, there are so many presumptions about what spirituality is, or what religion is, or what we're supposed to be doing here. And I've gotten really clearer about that part that says, okay, so we got to start from the beginning. We got to start. And no matter where I am in my own spiritual practice, in my own spiritual journey, in my own development, I'm always needing to keep it simple, because if I don't, then I get as confused as I used to all the time, thinking somebody else knows better than I do. And the truth is that I know what's best for me. I know what's true for me. And these videos, these lives, are to support and empower you to be able to say, here's what's true for me, and be able to have that conversation either with yourself or people that you care about, that you'd like to be able to be more yourself in the world. Wouldn't that be great? And the more that you're yourself, the happier you are, the more fulfilled, the lighter you are, the more that you impact people positively. And I think that's what we're all here to do, inevitably. But it has to start in the beginning of, what am I experiencing in this moment? And this has been a big part of my relationship with my clients as a transformational coach, which is like a life coach and a spiritual coach. My work is to support and empower people through this process of being human, being in the life. That's my job, is to support and empower people to say, what's it like being in your life? And what is it that you want to cultivate and have going on in your life? And as we do that, quite often it's like, we're told, hey, be the best and have the best and have whatever you want. And at the same time, we're given this message, be afraid, be very afraid. It's like that in itself is the dilemma that we face, right? Part of reality says, hey, go for it. And the other part says, hey, keep your head down. Stay under the radar. People are going to take something from you. So it's those places that are very challenging to even begin to want a spiritual practice, because it's like, where do you begin? Who do you trust? And even that is a questioning of reality, isn't it? Skepticism, being skeptical, is something that, boy, we're trained to be skeptical. And, don't trust anybody. Don't trust government, don't trust medical, don't trust economics, don't trust education, like all of that. Don't trust religions. There's so many messages like that. And yet, how do we go forward? And in essence, you want to start again, getting really more simple with asking yourself, what's my thoughts on this? What do I trust about? I mean, it's not even a trust, because so many of us don't even trust ourselves. We don't even trust ourselves more so. And it's like, that's why we always listen to what other people are saying. We're watching what other people are doing. I know when I go on to Amazon and I'm going to buy something, I need to buy something, I'm going to look at the reviews. I want to see what other people are saying about the product. And that gives me a lot of information, and that's good. When I'm even doing these types of these lives, I do some research. I say, here, what's this person doing? What's this person doing? What are they saying? What's really true? What's the statistics around this? And so I listen to a number of views, and then I go, but here's what's true for me. Here's what's right for me. Here's what I know that's right for me. And that might mean paying more money for something, but it's okay because it's what I want. I bought a larger aquarium for my fish because I have a beta fish, which is a beautiful little guy. You'll see him at some point, but he's in a 5-gallon tank and I feel like it's too small. And it's like, again, the rationalization, if I look at the reality of the world, 5 gallons is fine for a beta fish. But for me, it's like it felt too small. And it's like, yeah, but and then I would justify, oh, it's more money. He doesn't need it. All those justifications of why not to get it. But I couldn't not feel that I really want a 10-gallon tank for this guy. And so, it's like, oh, I'll buy a $10 tank or I'll buy a $20 tank. And doing the research and seeing what's out there, I came up with what I wanted, what was best for me, felt right for me, felt like this is the one. And it took research, it took ideas, it was looking at what was going on and then coming back to me and saying, this is the one I want. I paid more money for it, the rest of it, but I'm happy. And that's that dilemma thing. Like, shouldn't I not want to do that? Shouldn't I pay for less? Shouldn't I? And all those shoulds are those things of questioning reality. So anytime we're buying something, we go to the store and find, I was looking at avocados and I went through the whole bunch. Which one? Questioning, is this the right one? Is this the right one? Is this the right one? How do I know? And then I just picked one. That's what we're doing all the time. All the time. Obviously, I'm just giving you a bunch of examples of how I'm doing it all the time. We're questioning reality. And usually, in terms of this particular title, it's like questioning reality. But when we question reality in that big way, the big R reality, it gets scary. It gets overwhelming. Where do you start? What's really true? And so we have to look at where and how we're questioning reality in a way that supports us in growing ourselves little by little. So another example of sometimes too much information, TMI, when I was in first grade, Catholic school, 6 years old, and the nun says, okay, so before going to first grade, God is wonderful, God is love, God is wonderful again. And we go to church, we go to school, and it's like the first day, the sister says, God is all powerful, all seeing, all knowing. He sees you. It's like what they say about Santa Claus. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. And so be good for goodness sake. It's like, and that's really scary. And so in the whole element of God's going to see me do bad things, not God's going to see me in my love, but God's going to see me do bad things. So don't do bad things. At 6 years old, that's way too much information. And I just shut down. I was in a state of worry and panic. It's not funny because it's true for, I think, a lot of kids that are in that state of constantly being in anxiety that they're going to be found out, that they're doing something wrong. And we live, even as adults, many of us are like adult children. I love that term because we have so many belief systems that we developed in our childhood about being afraid or being unworthy or not having enough, not being enough. And we learn that as in our imprinting as little children. Like I said, this nun is just doing her job. She's been doing it for 40 years, and here it is again. So that imprint of what came into me really took away a lot of my innocence, most of my. It was like I just stopped being in that innocence and was constantly in vigilance of being wrong and sinning and all that. And so that level of that continued because that's what I was trained to be. That's what I took on as the training. So my telling you that story is if there's too much information, you can back away from that and say, that's too much information. Let's get a little bit more specific. Let's get a little bit more in this moment. What do I need to know in this moment? What do I need to look at in this moment? What am I questioning in this moment? So most of us, regardless of what age we are, we're at a stage in our spiritual practices, in our spiritual journey, in our spiritual evolution, where we're questioning what we can and being with what we can be with. And we don't need to do more than that. We don't need to be seeking outside, in a sense, I want to say this, I'll finish the sentence. We don't need to seek outside our comfort zone. We're learning to grow that comfort zone. We're leaning against the edges of our comfort zone to question what's true for us, but we don't have to explode and blow up our comfort zone. We want to be able to, for me, I want to empower you to grow yourself at the rate of comfort that works for you as best you can. If you're trying to grow yourself too fast, you'll in a sense, it's like a rubber band. As you're expanding, if you go too far too fast, you'll break the rubber band and you're uncomfortable. So in the practices that I really want to empower you to do is really honor yourself and go, here's what's true for me. Here's what I can stretch into in this moment. Here's what works, but doesn't overwhelm me. So whether you're looking at spiritual traditions, and again, I'm just air quoting things because each one of us has a different sense of, each one of us has our own reality that we're living with. And each one of us has our own interpretations of what we're hearing and what we're seeing. Another person in my first grade class, they may have went, oh my God, I love that God is all over and God sees me and knows me and is truthfully all present to who I am. They might have heard it that way. That's not how I heard it, but that's okay. The point is every single one of us has our own way of experiencing and knowing. And so we can question reality based on that. And that even is an interesting questioning of reality because there's what we consider to be the norm. Here's what normal people do. And my understanding of a lot of what therapy is it's helping people who are dysfunctional, who can't function in the normal world. It brings them into a state of normal, whatever that is. But my job as a transformational life coach is to take people who are in that normal or want to be normal, but let you know you're not normal, you're extraordinary. And you are extraordinary, and that there is no normal. If you ask people, they all feel dysfunctional. Every person I know, mostly, and I'm not met everybody, but in terms of my work and the way that I share and listen to other people, they're all this element of where I am not normal. Even people who are amazingly wealthy or amazingly successful in business or whatever, there are these places that go, here's where I am messed up. Here's where I am unworthy. Here's where I am less than significant. Here's where I'm constantly trying to prove myself. So even the sense of normal, we can begin to question the reality of that. Don't you find? I find that funny. I find that We have this whole reality that was based on normal that somebody makes up. Somebody made it up, or a bunch of people make it up. And we go, yeah, 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 I want to be that. And the truth is, I've never been that. And I always tried to be that because I thought that's what would get approval from my parents and my children, or from my husband, or from wherever. But the truth is that I've never been normal. I once gave my mom, this is after I divorced my husband and all kinds of things that just totally went against her reality, the reality of my mother. And I found this card. It says, in a sense, this is who I am. This is normal for me. I can't tell you exactly how it was, but it was like, here's the normal, the new normal, I guess is what it would have said. Here's the new normal, because this is who I am. And at the same time, I still was in that that bind to try to be like everybody else, try to fit in. And it continually wore on me. And I suffered a lot because I was trying to fit in when I wasn't really listening to the me that I am. And for me, the spiritual process is the listening to who I am, the I amness of us, each one of us. And so we do that. And then at some point we realize the divinity, the divineness that is within us. And that's when it becomes more of a spiritual practice versus just a personal development practice. So I would love to hear thoughts from you guys. What's showing up, if this is making sense, if this is useful, if you're still there. It would be great to hear your thoughts. The element I want to come back to, Marge says, seeing a pretty brave seeing a pretty brave thing. I don't know what CC is, Marge, but she says it's a pretty brave thing to do, to declare your own sense of what's normal. Absolutely. Absolutely. Maslow has this pyramid, this hierarchy of needs, and at the top is self-actualization, individuation. And that's individuation where it's like, I am a sovereign being. I am this, and whatever other people say, I am not influenced by that. I can hear it and I can take it in, but I am no longer afraid. Thank you, Marge. She just clarified it's a pretty brave thing to do, to declare your own sense of normal. But this is what I want for every single human being on the planet. That's why I wrote the book. Well, it's not, it's like Self-Empowerment 101. It's everyone has their own sense of self. We're working towards that. I mentioned to Marge earlier that since we leave, the moment we leave the womb, we are in the process of individuating. We first are so afraid of being left and alone, but then it's like, oh, okay, so what's happening here? Who am I? What am I? And we begin to learn what this is. And this is an individuated, separate human being. And at the same time, we have core universal connections. That's one of those reality things that we begin to question. But that need to find ourselves, and we do that by questioning reality, questioning what's true. A book I read all the time and work with is called WHOLENESS by Rasha. I'll put the link down below for that book. In the second chapter, it says, we are here to completely reject consensus view of reality. Now, the first time I read that about 10 years ago, it was like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Rejecting completely consensus reality. But over the years, when I got clearer about what consensus reality is, in a sense, saying, or the degree to which it influences me in fearful ways, or ways that are that don't work for me, then I can begin to question that consensus view of reality. Now, I'm not at the place where I completely have completely rejected consensus reality, because I'm still learning and evolving and coming to greater understandings of what that means. But beginning at the beginning, it's like, wow, we're questioning reality so that we can get to know what's true here and get to trust that what's here is good and awesome, not just good, but awesome, and is in a divine expression of the divineness, the big D, but divineness. That's what this is. That's what this is. One of the things I want to share with you, two things, is when I was thinking about my fish pond, I've got fish ponds, but my little fish aquariums here. And I was thinking about 8 months ago when I got some fish for this. And at that time, I thought I knew what I knew, but I didn't know enough. And a lot of fish died. And it was like, it was sad. And I was really upset, really, really upset. So as I was thinking about this the other day, I went, wow, I was really unconscious about how incompetent I was. And then I remembered the 4 areas of, I forget what it's called, but it's the steps that we take from the place of being unconscious of what we don't know, being unconscious of how we see the world, but we don't actually know the world. We're just like that imprint, the computer that's continually running these programs without actually questioning the programs. Do I really need that particular app? Do I really need to look at the world that way? Do I really need to be as fearful as I am? So that place of unconsciousness, being unconscious of how incompetent I was as a fish keeper, was the beginning. And that's where we have to begin to think about ourselves in development with ourselves. It's like so much of me is unconscious of what I know or what I don't know. And so the more that I do research, or the more that I read things, and it goes, that really resonates with me, and that doesn't resonate with me, then I begin to question, be able to question things in such a way that I'm honoring the truth of me. So first, there's the unconscious incompetence. I don't even know how incompetent I am. I have no clue. And then I get fish and they die, and I go, wow, I need to learn. And so I watch a lot of YouTube videos on the water parameters, the temperatures, the plants, the algae, all those things that make up the system, and then put these live little beings in there and hope they thrive. And that's what we're doing here. This is a live human being in here, and we're not actually paying attention to how it's going to thrive. We just kind of throw things at it, or listen to the news or whatever, or read those things in Facebook that says, here's the next thing you should be afraid of. Don't drink milk, don't eat meat, don't eat gluten, all of the things that we are afraid of, that we're told to be afraid of. And then that changes to, for instance, eggs used to be a really bad thing. You used to be afraid of eating eggs, and now eggs are good, and I don't know where they are now. But all these things that are thrown at us in terms of what you should be afraid of. And what we should be afraid of is that whole paradigm of fear, because all it does is it controls us, makes us feel anxious, and doesn't allow us to thrive. Doesn't allow us to thrive. Now, we're part of that. As long as we're in that paradigm with our own thoughts, then we're part of the part that's saying, don't thrive. It's too scary. Fred says, living is a learning process. Yes, living is a learning process. And the thing we don't think about is that living is a learning process, but it's like our body is in a process constantly. It's never stable. It's never, it never stops. I looked at myself the other day. I was doing a video, and it was like, oh my God, I look old. It was just like, I was shocked, right? Because I still think of myself as 32 years old. But the process of this body is ongoingly shifting, ongoing. It will never stop until it dies. The being inside is ongoing. The process of being me, learning. It's like, what an opportunity. I didn't have a clue what learning opportunities are available to me in my 60s. I'm not yet 70, but all the learning that is now more and more available to me because I'm more and more open to questioning reality, saying what's really true for me. And that's really cool. So I'm enjoying the part of me that's learning so much, and realizing that this is a process that's ever evolving. And at the same time, I look, when I look in the mirror, if I don't look in the mirror, I'm okay. But those are things that we question reality. Even the I want to get back to the unconscious incompetence, but even that context or the beliefs and the truisms, reality of getting old, that even is, we've got to question that, because again, there's so much fear that is in us about getting old, and that what's required is this decline and decrepitude. And I got to tell you, that is just not so for so many people. When we buy into it, we buy into the belief systems, that's what's going to kill us, if you will. But and there was an interesting study that said, how we think stress kills, right? And there was this study that said the people who believe stress kills, they're the ones that actually died. The people that don't believe stress kills, they didn't die. I don't know how that study went, but it was kind of an interesting thing, that the belief that stress kills, that'll kill you. So these are all kinds of ways that we can begin to question reality. We can begin to question what's true. And if it's true for you, it's true for you. So if you think aging is going to be hard and terrible and lonely, that's probably what you're going to create. But if you go, wow, there's a lot going on in those old people, there's so much going on, so much wisdom and so much goodness and thriving in the potentiality as you get older. And that's just a different perspective, isn't it? Marge says, I need to be reminded over and over about what consensus reality is. How do I tell it from reality, real reality? Should I stop listening to studies? I think the point is that I look at studies, but I look at more than one study. I look at, if I'm really interested in a particular statistic, I'll look at a number of studies to see what's the general perspective. And then I get to be the interpreter of what I'm going to do with that information. That's what I would say is, how do you tell real from real reality? And it's like, what's the point of those studies? In looking at those studies, what are you looking for? What is it that you're wanting to have by looking at those studies? So Gracie is having a moment, so she'll be done in a second. So that's what I would ask is, should I stop listening to studies? No, but look at what is the intention of looking at those studies? What are you looking for specifically? So Alicia says, this is a food question, Marge. I'll wait to see what else you're saying, Alicia. Anyway, I'll let you guys keep doing that. So what we're doing is we transitioning little by little from unconscious incompetence. I don't know what I don't know. And then we move to conscious incompetence. Oh, I know now that I don't know much about aquariums. So then I begin to go, okay, I want more information. Marge is saying, I want more information, more studies. And so looking at studies, looking at what other people are doing, listening for what other people are saying, And then we're developing conscious competence. And that's what we want, is we want to develop conscious competence. And in relation to spirituality, or in relation to a spiritual practice, we're doing that in terms of, who am I? Consciously going, okay, I'm unconscious of who I am. We live in this personality. We live in this structure and this strategy of avoiding fear, avoiding rejection, avoiding hurt. And that's what we're kind of doing a lot when we're not conscious of who we are inside. But as we become more conscious of who inside, then we go, well, I don't want to live my life that way. I don't want to live my life always worrying about if people are going to leave me, or if they're going to think I'm stupid, or if I'm unworthy. I don't want to live that way anymore. So how do I get conscious of loving myself? How do I get conscious of even being able to find the self to get loved? We're all like this. Most of us are like this. Very few of us have that capacity to know and love ourselves from the beginning. So we're creating conscious awareness of this being inside this body, and how we want to choose to be in the world, how we want to choose to be love in the world, how we want to choose to be. If you want to choose to be pissy or angry, or if you want to choose to be judgy and complaining or whining, you can choose that. But the more that we become conscious of, oh, I am choosing to be whiny, I am choosing to be complaining, I am choosing to be pissy, I'm choosing to be grumpy. It's like, okay, now I can work with that. So this is what we're talking about, is growing the consciousness of, oh, look at how I'm being right now. I used to think I was a really nice person and a really good person, and I am. But a lot of me, I was very unconscious. A lot of me was so afraid that I was constantly manipulating to keep people in my life. I was constantly manipulating to get what I thought I needed, because I had no belief. This is where I had to question reality, but I had no belief that my value was enough to be loved and to have people love me, that I was lovable. I always thought that I had to do stuff in order to be loved. So I would do stuff, but that's manipulation. And so that was a huge practice for me, is to become conscious of, oh, look at how I'm being. That is not, that's not a lovable person. And it took me a long time to realize that none of that was really what I want to be in the world. And so I get to question reality. And people say you have to work hard to get love. You have to work hard to get money. You got to work hard to just fill in the blank. You got to work hard. And it's like, that's really not necessarily true. It's not necessarily true. In fact, I'm learning the opposite. I have to work hard to let go of those thoughts. I have to let go. I have to work hard to train myself to stop being afraid of whatever, because I don't want to live in fear. I want to live in love. I want to live in thriving. I want to live in excitement and expansion. And love and fear is in a sense the opposite of that. Fear will keep you constrained and limited and avoiding potential risk. Marge says, the truth is that some of my most difficult questions are about food. So even your typo was right on. So I got it. Thanks, you two. I kind of I didn't miss that, but yeah, good question. How do you know how to tell it from real reality? And again, that now I got the question, Mark. Now I get the question. How do you know reality? And again, in terms of looking at what's the level of which you can understand or accept or appreciate, it's like everything real can never be taken away from you. This is in the Course of Miracles. Nothing real can be lost. Nothing real can be attacked. Nothing real can be, I guess that's what I want to say, attacked. There's another word there. That's the quote. Nothing real can be attacked. And you don't have to be afraid of anything. When you're in fear, you're not in real. When you're in fear, you're in something else. And if you're in worry or anxious, that all comes from fear. When you're attacking somebody, that comes from fear. When you're judging somebody, that comes from fear. When you're comparing yourself with somebody, that comes from fear. So those are little practices to say, okay, I'm going to stop judging, or I'm going to stop attacking. Even the little nitpicky things that we say to our spouses or to our children or whatever, where we want to feel like we have to say something. Each one of those things is that moment of attack. There's something that we're afraid of, that we lack something, that we need to say something. If I don't say something, and then we're in that question mark. So nothing real can be attacked or taken away from you. And so life can get pretty simple. I mean, that can be pretty intense question. That's like, oh my God, that's overwhelming. But if we say, when you know love, and that can't be taken away from you. The memories that you have of all the childhood things that you're carrying with you, or with your partners or your loved ones, those memories can't be taken away from you. The beauty you feel when you're watching a sunset, that can't be taken away from you. The sense of abundance when you're nourished and thriving, that can't be taken away from you. So what's real, in a sense, can't be taken away from you. Now, practicing that is pretty, it's like, it can feel overwhelming, or it can go, okay, so then I question as I go through my day, is what I'm about to do come from this place of real and expansion and wholeness of me? Does it come from a place of a truth from me, or does it come from, I should do this and I'm supposed to do this? If I don't do this, I'm not a fill in the blank. It's like we get to question that. So is that helpful as an answer to your question? Because it is a really good question. I finally got it. This part of me that's going to turn 69 next week. And it's like, am I too old to do this? Right? If I listen to the paradigm or the consensus reality would say, you're too old, Rosie, you shouldn't be doing this. In fact, you're supposed to be retired. You're supposed to be doing something else. And it's like, but that's not who I am. But the reality is, the part of consensus reality that I still am immersed in says, you're too old. You're too old to be doing this. And it's like, well, I'm working it. Marge says, I like your specific examples. Thank you. Love is real. Fear comes from consensus reality, from what others expect of you. That's right. Excuse me 1 second. We should have. What do you got? Oops. So that, in a sense, is an awakening, a level of awakening to go, yes. So that moment, this conversation that we're having can be awakening to go, oh, I get it now. So we're questioning reality, and we have that opportunity to go, oh, so I'm just a little bit more conscious now of what I'm thinking or how I'm being in the world, and that I can own that love is real. I can own that fear comes from consensus reality, and from what others. I can own that. Okay, now I've got a greater degree of competence with myself, knowing myself. And I can make some distinctions of, if I'm feeling fear, then I can question where that comes from and whether I can make a different choice. I can choose to be fearful, and I can choose to make a different choice. So again, we're always working on the gradient. This is a good perspective, is quite often we think of spiritual development as being this, that we're having to work hard and get things, but we're always working on the gradient that is. Even this conversation for me has me look at what my gradient is of speaking and sharing this perspective, and how well it lands, I don't know. And that place that says, I can be afraid that whoever's watching this is like, oh my God, she doesn't know it. I can be afraid of rejection. I can be afraid of what other people will think, and whether I'm in alignment with spiritual perspectives of other people. I can worry about that and be afraid, but that isn't going to allow me to have this personal experience that I'm having with you right now. And that's all that's important. If I'm attached to the outcome that everybody's going to like this and everybody's going to make a life change because they watched this video, it gets in the way of me just having this moment with you. And that's what this is about for me, is this sharing. And the more that I'm engaged with you through our comments, then it's more of a true full expression and fulfillment of what makes me happy and brings about thriving for me. And hopefully it brings about thriving for you. So Marge says, if I'm in fear, I can choose to look at it from a different point of view. Absolutely. That's where we're questioning reality. And again, in the Course in Miracles, it says, show me a different way to look at this. I'm seeing this only from the perspective of fear. Show me a different way to look at this. Last year, about this time, when we were going through the beginnings of the pandemic, I was in a huge panic. I was in a huge panic. I just thought we were all going to die. And even though I have the spiritual wisdom that I have, the part of me that's in this physical form and says, we're all going to die, I was having a moment. I was having a huge moment. And so I went into the Course in Miracles, and my prayer was, show me a different way to see this. And I was guided to some particular lessons in the Course in Miracles, which drew me into the very specific elements of how we see the world, consensus reality. And it was so specific, and I spent hours and days looking at that. It wasn't as if I could go, oh, I get it, got it. It was like I had to go back over and over and over again to train myself to see this a different way, because I could stay in fear, but that wasn't going to serve me. And I had the knowing that fear isn't the way, isn't real, but then to actually experience it is a whole different game. It's like, okay, that hurts. That's scary. If you break a bone, or if you're told you have cancer, that's scary. And it's like, okay, how do we be with this? And show me a way to be with this, that I can be in alignment with my highest truth, my highest knowing, and my highest good. Show me how I can be in alignment with my truth, my highest knowing, and my highest good, and my highest contribution to the world. So, yeah, you can ask to see it a different way. Now, again, it's like I'm sharing with you that it took me days, and I got the lesson, but then after a week, I fell back into the hole of despair and panic, and I had to go back to those lessons. I had to read them again and practice and train myself and go back into it and say, this is what I want. This is what I need. If I'm in this perspective, I'm in attack, I'm in fear, and I'm in something other than what I know to be my true self. I had to practice it and practice it and practice it. And that's really big work for all of us. And that's what, I'm hoping that this contributes to all of us being in those states of courage to say, it's courage and strength to say, I want to see this differently. I don't want to be in fear. I don't want to live my life from the constraints of fear. What's the point in that, really? If it's to keep your head from getting chopped off, you're going to die anyway. This was a big realization. I'm going to die one way or another. And am I going to die in the fullness of my being, in moving towards the full potentiality of this being? Or am I going to play small forever and miss out on learning and growing and like being pretty amazed at what is showing up in this process of being this human being. That's our choice. And I'm choosing thriving, and I'm choosing to hang out with you guys and say, hey, what are you choosing? And can I maybe support you in choosing differently? Just so that you'll thrive, just so that you can find out how awesome you are, because you're really awesome. You're really awesome. And the more that you hang out with yourself and allow yourself to question reality, question what's true out there, and go, that doesn't work for me, then you get to know what's true for you. You get to go, oh, yeah, I actually have an opinion that makes a difference to me. It doesn't have to make a difference to anybody else. It's like this. It's just this. And the more that you enjoy and appreciate and value and respect your own perspective, the more that you will attract more of that, if you want, in your life. People who enjoy you and your perspective, more like-mindedness, more engaged in the place of less fear, and more in delight and playfulness. If that's what you want, that's awesome. And it gets easier because you get clearer about, here's what I got to practice. I want to see it differently. Okay. And then I wait and listen. And I will be told, I will be given guidance on what to do next, or what to think, or what to see. It's happened every single time. There have been times where I'm thinking of a particular time with my daughter when she did something and I was really pissed off, and it was like, she's the bad one. She's the one that's wrong, that kind of stuff. And then it was like, at the same time I go, no, that's an attack perspective. What's the real truth here? And I said, please show me another way to see this. And then I woke up in the morning and I went, oh, okay, thanks. And this moment of humbleness, humility came in, and where I saw that what I was doing was a place of righteousness or control or something else. And I was able to see and own, oh, that's what this is about for me. It had nothing to do with her. So I was able to own that. And generally I say, hey, I get it. It was mine, my stuff. But I was able to own it in a different way. So that I'm aware that we have about 3 minutes left on this call. So on this video. So I'm just kind of seeing where I need to wrap up. The two other elements that we got to is that place of conscious, where we started out with unconscious incompetence, then went through conscious There's unconscious incompetence, then unconscious competence. We're starting to develop our competence. And then we get to a place where we can finally have conscious competence. We know consciously what we are capable of. And I'm at a stage, for me personally, where I am conscious that I have a lot of competence, and I have this ability, as we all do, to expand and become even more competent. We are 100% potentiality. We are part of the universal source of all that is. This is one of those big, big truths that may be overwhelming, but I really, truly believe that I am 100% potentiality. I believe you are 100% potentiality. And I want to know what that is. So I want to grow this capacity to be conscious and to be competent in that capacity. And if I notice fears or these limiting thoughts and constraining ideas that are mostly part of the consensus reality, then I'm going to say, okay, I'm looking at that. Is that true for me? And then choose, hopefully at some point, choose to be in alignment more and more and more and more with this. My highest truth, my highest knowing, my highest good, and the highest good and contribution to everyone. David's here. Yay. Could it be regret is yesterday's memory and fear is tomorrow's worry, but reality only exists in each now moment. Therefore, contentment is the now reality of this moment. Absolutely. And that's what I'm really striving for that. And I can only strive for that, David, for me is knowing that this moment, the isness of this moment is I'm having an experience. And if I honor that moment of this divine, I'm calling it divine, precious experience. I mean, can you imagine each and every one of us is having a moment, this moment of experiencing life. And if we could really understand the rapture of that experience, like, wouldn't that be great? That would be great. So I love what you're saying, that therefore the contentment in the now reality of this moment is what we're working towards. The serenity of this moment is really what I'm totally on board with you on that one. So thank you all for being here today with me. And if you haven't already liked and subscribed, please do so. Just click that little thumbs up button, and that would make me really happy. I'd love to if you would leave comments below too, if of what you find is challenging you in terms of consensus reality or questioning reality. What are the harder challenges that you face when you're questioning reality? That would be really cool for you to leave that below. I'd love to see that. All right. Thank you again for being here. And I look forward to seeing you again. Okay. Bye for now.